Everyone. Uh, Thanks for joining Henry Nguyen and I for an an excellent webinar about engineering, bouncing off of Henry's experience as a former engineer and a current educational professional who helps students with math and science tutoring, and some of them, I'm sure, become successful engineers in the future. And my expertise helping students to best fit colleges. I am excited to kind of hear all about Henry's perspective. I'm sure some of this I haven't even heard yet myself, so this is going to be a great session. The goals for today, basically, I would love for everybody to learn about the engineering path for career in college. Henry is going to talk about the career side, and I'm going to talk about the college side, but you're going to learn hopefully a lot more than you're going to get from just a list of starting salaries and careers. I'll start by talking about myself just very briefly. I am a college counselor. I work with students. I work with students one-on-one to help them with college search and college applications. For me, that first part is so big. I really want to help students find colleges where they're going to be happy and thrive, achieve their goals. I don't want them to go to fancy schools where they're not happy and don't achieve their goals. I want to use my expertise knowing so many of the 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States to help them find places where all of their boxes are checked and they can do anything that they want. I own my own firm. That's College Torch. It's in Sierra Madre, but I meet students virtually, and I have experience reading applications for the Coca-Cola Scholars Foundation, and that tends to come up anytime we're talking about very selective programs, because those applications were so impressive. How do you narrow those down? And it does make me think of the engineering path in a way, because so many qualified applicants aren't so many qualified applicants I think are just surprised by how tough it is. I am not going to get into the alphabet soup here, but anytime you work with a college consultant, make sure that they're a member of ideally IECA or HECA, but at least one of these four associations that I'm a part of. A quick introduction to Henry. He's the founder of Commando Combatives and Calculus. That's the name of his tutoring firm. And I think at this point, I'll let him tell you more.
Yeah, so I also teach self-defense in addition to tutoring math and science. That's why it's Commando Combatives and Calculus. So I've been tutoring off and on and teaching since about 2010. And before that, I worked as a teaching assistant when I was in school. So teaching and tutoring has always been very strong in my background. And in May of 23, I finally decided to pull the ejection handle on my engineering career and go full-time on my tutoring business. So I've helped a lot of students succeed. One of the first students I ever tutored in math and science is now actually an engineer at Applied Materials after having spent a few years at Northrop Grumman. So I'm very proud of him. And so I'm eager to help students succeed in every way possible, not just in terms of learning technical skill, but also I want my students to be equipped to be successful in life with whatever they do, wherever they go. And that's a little about me.
Henry, amazing. Thank you. Would you like to share your screen now?
Sure.
You think you're ready?
Do that.
Excellent. While you're pulling that up, I'll say that I love hearing Henry talk about life skills because he really means what he says. He wants to help students not just with math and science, but with becoming a future professional ready to contribute to the world and take care of themselves, which really matters for engineering. All right, Henry, take it away.
Okay, so again, my name is Henry Nguyen. My tutoring and self-defense business is Commando Combatives and Calculus. A little bit about me. I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I have two Master of Engineering degrees, one in electrical engineering and one in biomedical engineering, in addition to an MBA. My professional background, I've worked in sales, both selling kitchen knives as well as selling insurance. I've worked in patent law, which might sound strange for an engineer, but it actually makes sense because a lot of new inventions are very technical, so they require an engineer and that expertise to write intelligently about the new inventions. I have a very strong background in education. I am currently a private tutor, and I previously served as part-time faculty at Cal State LA teaching statistics. I also teach self-defense. I own my own business. And of course, I have several years of experience as an engineering professional. So what do engineers do? The core essence of what they do is to design and create and build new things. So if that's something that you enjoy, engineering may be a good career path for you. I remember when I was a kid, I had Legos, like most kids do. And one of the things that always bothered me about the spaceship Legos was that the pilot compartment was designed so that it was open to the outside. And it always bothered me. It's like, why would anyone design a spaceship where the crew compartment is open to the outside, the vacuum of space? So I would rebuild these spaceships with airtight pilot compartments, and I would test it by submerging them in water in the bathtub to make sure that the pilot's compartment was airtight. So if that's the kind of thing you like to do, or if, for example, if you like to build a radio from a kit or design things and build things with your hands, then engineering could be a very good career for you. Be aware though that not all engineering jobs actually involve designing and building new things. I've had several full-time engineering jobs, and in none of them was I actually ever designing and building new RF circuits, even though that's what my education supposedly trained me to do. It required someone who had a background in engineering to do the job, but I was not actually designing and building new things. So be aware that even though the essence of what engineering is about is designing and building new things, not all engineering jobs will actually involve doing that. Educational requirements. Typically, you will need at least a bachelor's degree in the particular engineering field you pursue. Some jobs may require a master's or a PhD, or those degrees may make you a more competitive applicant. For example, I've seen job postings where they say something like master's degree required, PhD preferred. But there are other jobs where they don't want a master's or PhD because you're overqualified and they want someone with just a bachelor's degree. For example, I was once at a job fair. I walked up to the recruiter from Avery Dennison and introduced myself saying, hello, my name's Henry. I have a master's degree in engineering. I'm looking for a job. And she said, sorry, you're overqualified. We want someone with just a bachelor's degree. So depending on what job you want will determine exactly what kind of education you need. You will definitely need a good science and math background. For example, math up through calculus. You'll need physics, chemistry, and possibly biology, especially for biomedical engineers. But definitely you need a good, strong science and math background if you want to pursue engineering. In general, for an engineering career, you always want to put first things first, whether in school and work. If there's something important, you want to do it first, otherwise later you might not have a chance. For example, as an engineer on the job, it may be more important to document a procedural performance before the contract expires rather than just handling routine repair orders. And I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes I let little things that are just running day to day occupy so much of my time that I don't work on the big important things. There's a story about a motivational speaker in a jar of rocks where he fills a jar with big rocks. He asks the class, is the jar full? The answer, yes. Then he dumps small rocks in the jar that fills in the gaps between the big rocks. Again, he asks the class, is the jar full? The answer, yes. Then he pours sand in the jar and he asks, is the jar full now? And this time the class says no. And he's all, you're right. Then he pours water in the jar until it fills the rim. He asks the class, what is the time? The implication of this for your time management. One eager student raises his hand and says, no matter how busy you think you are, you can always fit more in your schedule. But the man answers, no. The lesson I want you to learn from this is that if you don't put the big rocks in first, you will never be able to fit them in at all. So what can you do now while you're still in school to enhance your chance of becoming a good engineer? Well, you can volunteer. There are a lot of volunteer opportunities available. You would ideally find a volunteer opportunity that is related to your intended career path. You can search job openings on sites such as Indeed.com or LinkedIn and see what our employers looking for. And this will help you focus your study plans, focus on what you need to do to qualify for the kind of jobs you want. You can shadow engineer for a day. For example, if you have a family friend or you know someone who is an engineer, You can ask them, hey, can I follow you around work for a day? And you can get a first-hand look and see with your own eyes, what do engineers really do on a day-to-day basis? Internships are good. Even an unpaid internship is valuable because it will build experience and boost your resume so that later on when you're applying for paid jobs, you're a more competitive applicant. And it also lets you see firsthand what engineers really do on a daily basis. You can also ask for information interviews at places that do engineering work that you might be interested in. And this helps you become more aware of what's waiting for you in the professional world, and to kind of help you what course you want to study, what major you want to pursue, things like that. It's always good to know what you're getting yourself into before you jump in feet first. So you want to make the most of your time in college. So first party, study hard, do well in your classes, right? As a student, your job is to study and learn and get good grades. That's your job. That's what you are there for. It's what eventually people will pay you for. Also, you want to socialize and make good friends. Dorm life is great for this. Joining clubs, sports, or activities that are interesting. You can join a student chapter of an engineering society, such as IEEE for electrical engineers. And you can do research. Even if research is unpaid, it will help build your resume. And doing research at the undergraduate level is particularly valuable if you plan to go on to graduate school, because graduate education is ultimately all about doing academic research. So getting your feet wet early as an undergrad will help make you a more competitive applicant when it's time to apply for graduate school. So yes, you should study hard, but also balance that with time to make friends and have a little fun in college too, because you don't want to totally unbalance your life. So there are many different fields of engineering. There's, for example, electrical engineering. My primary specialty is RF engineering. I'm trained and educated to design radio frequency and microwave circuits, the kind of thing that you would find in a cell phone or radar system, things like that. There's also the field of biomedical engineering. For example, if you are interested in developing artificial limbs or prosthetics, that's something that biomedical engineers do. Chemical engineering, you might be designing a chemical plant to turn out more methane or hydrogen to be used as fuel, things like that. Mechanical engineering is good if you like fitting things together physically, like how gears fit together, how levers and pulley works. If that's your kind of thing, mechanical engineering may be a good fit for you. Civil engineering, they build things like road systems, buildings, bridges. So if getting out and about and looking at a road system is something you would be interested in, civil engineering may be a good career field for you. Aerospace engineering, they build airplanes like fighter jets, like what you see in the picture here. So if maybe designing the next generation fighter jet for the Air Force is something you would want to do, aerospace engineering may be a good fit for you. Computer engineers and computer science, that's, as the name implies, they work a lot with computers. A lot of those jobs are coding, writing computer programs at a long stretch of time. Coding jobs, you can expect to be sitting in front of a computer screen for long periods of time, writing and debugging code. Debugging code especially can be very time intensive. Petroleum engineers are very well paid, and it only requires a bachelor's degree. They help people look for methane, natural gas, and oil. And because those substances are so important for the modern economy, petroleum engineers are very well paid. So what you should consider is, what do you enjoy studying the most? For example, do you enjoy studying chemistry? Do you enjoy studying computer programming? Do you enjoy designing electronic circuits? So depending on what you enjoy doing, that will help you decide on a particular engineering field. Something I have to tell my students is, when you're considering a career choice, there are two considerations you should think about. One, make sure it's something you enjoy well enough that you are willing to really put in a lot of time and effort to master your craft and be excellent in your chosen profession. Number two, you want to pick something that's practical, something that is useful to society, that someone will pay you to do it, and that's something you could be qualified to do with the right education. So how do you get the first job after college? Because a lot of times employers only want to hire people who already have experience. But how do you get experience if no one's going to hire you? Chicken or the egg, right? So to sidestep this problem, a good method is to get an internship maybe between your second or third year of college, or between your third and fourth year of college. Get your foot in the door. And once you graduate, you can slide into a full-time job with that same firm, because they already know you, you already know them, your aware of each other, you know it's a good fit, and you can slide right into a full-time job as an engineer. In fact, one of my former coworkers, when I was an application engineer, he was an intern while he was finishing school, and once he graduated, he slid right into a full-time job as an engineer at that same company, and he's still there, I believe. And a lot of entry-level jobs specifically look for graduates with internship experience. So getting internship is, while you're still in college, is something I highly recommend if you want to pursue an engineering career. So making the jump from school to the workforce. The harsh reality is that most employers will see you as an expendable asset that they will readily throw under the bus. That's just reality. Just accept it and move forward. Any job you do, you are a professional as long as you perform your duties in a professional manner. Whether you're flipping hamburgers for minimum wage or you're doing brain surgery, you want to be doing your job in a professional manner, build that professional reputation so that you have a good work history and people know you can be counted on to do the job well, to do the job right. Many jobs will require more, sometimes a lot more than 40 hours a week. For example, there was one job I applied for and they wanted to bring me in for an interview. They said, oh yeah, with this job, including the overtime, you can easily clear 60K or 70K a year. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. But then I asked, wait a minute, how much overtime is required for the job? And they said, oh, it's 6 hours a day, 10 hours a week, 10 hours a day, sorry. So 60 hours a week or more of total hours. And I'm just thinking, no, thank you. I'm not doing that. But if you're willing to do that, then it might be a good fit. But you have to know what you want to do, how far you want to go to succeed in your career. And you have to make your own decision. So if you want to be a valued employee, make sure you add value to the company. In school, the primary focus is what do you want to do? What clubs do you want to join? What subjects do you want to study? But once you leave school, the primary question now becomes what can you do for them, the employer, that they would want to pay you money for? For example, can you design an RF circuit? Can you set up an antenna in an anechoic chamber to test a radiation pattern? Can you design a bridge that will withstand the stress of heavy vehicles for decades and decades so that it'll be safe for road traffic? In any field of engineering, and in any field in general, the star performers are the ones who tend to get promoted and pay more. And that's why I tell people, choose a job that you're willing to work hard, that you enjoy enough, that you're willing to work hard to truly be exceptional in your field. And again, also I recommend be a specialist, not a generalist, because in general, specialists are much more valuable. When I was a student in undergrad, I made the mistake of studying both engineering and languages. So it was fun because I was learning a lot of stuff, but in a way, I feel like I shot myself in the foot because I didn't really achieve my full potential as an engineer or as a linguist because I was splitting my efforts. I wasn't totally focused on one field. As another example, if you needed eye surgery because you had cataracts or something like that, you wouldn't want to go to a general doctor who does many different things. You would want a surgeon who specializes only in operating on human eyes because that would give you the best chance for a positive outcome. So that's why I say you should be a specialist and not a generalist. A common trait that I've seen among successful professionals, especially among engineers, is the ability to identify and solve problems. Ultimately, people pay you to solve their problems. For example, if the bridge isn't being built on schedule, the engineer in charge, they might change to a new engineer and say, hey, solve this problem for us. Get this bridge on schedule and on budget for us. As the economy changes, generalists may become more valuable, but as it stands right now, I still feel that in general, specialists are much more valuable in the economy. Now, this is not to scare you away from an engineering career field, but I want you to be aware of what awaits you in the professional world. The professional world, not just in engineering, but anywhere you go, can be ruthless in certain ways. Sometimes being too insistent about doing the right thing or telling the truth can get you fired or forced to resign. Sometimes you might have a tough or even impossible task, and failing it will mean losing your job. This more often happens at the higher levels like executives and chief engineers, things like that, because at those levels, more is demanded from people. For the most part, the company you work for really doesn't care about allowing you to uphold your integrity. If you're injured, they don't really care whether you recover or end up permanently crippled. They don't care if your salary is too low compared to the cost of living. What the company primarily cares about, sometimes the only thing it cares about, is earning large profits and covering their rear. This is unfortunate. It is reality. Learn to accept it and move forward and do things right and do your job in spite of the ruthlessness of the real world. Now, you should be aware that your college education is only the start of your professional education. Engineering classroom work just lays the foundation so you can understand all the advanced stuff you're going to learn later on the job. The really good stuff, the really juicy stuff, will never appear in your class notes or your textbooks. It has to be learned on the job. For example, you may learn the basics of how logic gates work and how it fits together to form a CPU core. But the really good stuff, like the exact details of how the latest Intel CPU works, that's going to be either patented or it's going to be locked away in a vault somewhere as a trade secret. So the really good stuff, it's always got to be learned on the job. And that's why experience is so valuable in the engineering field. Also, you should realize your job may involve tasks in fields other than your primary field of study. For example, in my most recent role as a project engineer working on RF traveling wave tubes, there was a lot of mechanical stuff that I had to work with. And that's not my field, especially. My field is electrical engineering. But I had to learn it and be enough that I could do my job, even though it's not my primary field, especially. So you have to be able to educate yourself and learn on the job. You've got to be prepared. Following up to that, you do have to be prepared to learn on your own. The whole point of formal education is to make the formal education unnecessary. It needs to equip you with the skills and the ability and the confidence to learn new skills with little or no guidance. For example, when I was an applications engineer working with RF circuits, there was a senior engineer assigned to train me. After I'd been there for several months, anytime I asked him a technical question, he would respond with something like, "Hey, Henry, you've been here 3 months already. Look it up, figure it out for yourself." Now, admittedly, not all jobs are like this. In my most recent job, when I asked a senior engineer technical questions, they were more than willing to help me and answer my questions and give me a full rundown on how things worked and everything they knew about stuff. But it's not always like that. And in some cases, there might not be someone qualified to answer your questions. Maybe you are the local expert and there's no one else more qualified than you are on the topic. So if you don't know, you've got to figure it out. Either look it up, do Google search, ask ChatGPT, run experiments, try different designs and see what works, what doesn't, and figure it out. So you've always got to be ready to learn on your own and look for opportunities to enhance your skills to make you a more valuable asset to the engineering firm, because that will ultimately lead to new opportunities. In school, you'll have the benefit of its expert instructors who will answer your questions. But in the workplace, you might not have that luxury. There might not be someone who will answer your question for you. For example, one time when I was an intern, a senior engineer made a mistake about how signal propagation velocity changes as the dielectric constant of the dielectric board changes. And at first he was insistent, no, this is right, Henry. And then I looked in my books and it's like, wait a minute, he's wrong. And I showed him my textbook to say, hey, I think this is actually what happens with signal velocity as the dielectric constant changes. And he looked at the textbook and he said, yeah, you're right, Henry. So you've got to be prepared to politely stand your ground when necessary to point out a mistake and make sure things get done right. As a new nugget, as a new intern or new engineer, that might be hard, but you've got to look it up and figure it out and be prepared to stand your ground and say, hey, this is actually what's the correct engineering task. Now, be aware, college is not your only option if you like technical things. For example, you could be an electrician, an auto mechanic, an electronics technician. None of those jobs require a college degree. They are not engineering jobs, but they are technical in nature. There is a job called network engineer where they develop and build and maintain computer networks. The starting salary is about a 70K a year. No college degree is needed, but it does require advanced training in the terms of short courses and getting certifications by passing tests. You could be a lab technician for a bioscience or pharmaceutical lab. That may require a college degree, it may not, depends. So college is not your only option, although I do recommend it because it is good to have a good education. But be aware, you do have choices, right? You're not required to go to college. If you think you want to run your own business, realize it's not going to be all fun and games. Most businesses will fail within their first few years. It is important to learn to deal with rejection gracefully. But in general, if you're good to your clients and treat them well, they will do the same for you. Also, being aware that getting clients for your business, especially when you're starting out, can be very difficult. When I started teaching self-defense, I thought a small goal would be getting enough clients to teach group lessons for only 10 hours a week. Just 10 hours a week, not even half of a full work week. But even getting just one client who wanted to learn self-defense lessons from me was very difficult. Keep in mind that if you don't take good care of the customer, someone else will. So developing those close relationships with your clients is very important for your business success. Here's some recommended reading. Of these books, my absolute favorite is The Way of the SEAL by Mark Devine. He talks about what he learned as a Navy SEAL officer and in his martial arts and meditation training, and how to apply that to being a better business leader and overall better person. But all of these are good books. Finally, I'd like to say thank you for listening, and shameless advertising plug here. Any new students who want to try tutoring with me, get a free 1 hour lesson to try tutoring or self-defense lessons if you want to try self-defense lessons. That's it. Here's my contact information, and that's all I've got. And now I'll turn it back over to you, Robert.
I think that the thing I want to share is that engineering is tough. And if you know that engineering is tough, then you're in a position to figure out, is this tough thing right for me? This particular pathway has a high rate of students not completing their degrees. That doesn't mean that they all dropped out. People can switch paths for a lot of reasons, but those students work very hard to get into an engineering college at a university when that is such a more difficult admit. And then they would switch paths, maybe because they find out they don't like it, or they like something else better, or they may switch to another major because of the sacrifices and challenge of an engineering pathway. And also they may just not be at the right university, and they may need to make a larger change. The statistics I had earlier were 60% of students who don't complete their engineering degree after being admitted to the engineering college, and 40% who would not complete it who would switch out in the first year. And I was asking my colleagues to see if we could find some better statistics for that, because those were, I think, from 2019 maybe. And I did find some information that I thought I'd share with you, and I'll do that in a minute. But basically, I think the thing that you should start with is, knowing that this is so tough and requires sacrifices. Sacrifices like you wouldn't be able to have fun in the same way. Please have a balanced life the best you can, but it won't be balanced like the other students have it. It won't be fun like the other students have it. You'll be staying up late. You do have to sacrifice mental health. There will be moments of challenge in terms of working with others, as it can be very competitive. I won't say cutthroat because everywhere is different, but most of these engineering colleges have competitive academic environments. And that may not be the college experience you were imagining. And so that's what I mean by sacrifices. Studying late at night when other people are having fun, and the difficult admissions to get in that may affect the college list. So I think you just have to love it. I think that's all it is. I said before I turned on the recording, I said it was about like needing it, and I think I like that. You should really love and need engineering if you are going to pursue engineering, because out of all of the paths, there are plenty that involve technology. If you're good at technology, I can think of plenty of paths where you can practice a coding skill or work with computers. And there are plenty that make money. In fact, I can think of quite a few careers that would make more money than engineering. You just have to push the numbers out a little bit. So engineers have a very high starting salary, but it's actually humanities majors that would actually start making more money 5 years out and 10 years out, just because it took them a while to get started. But they're the kind of people who would think creatively, get out of the system, and start doing things on their own. So we have a lot of humanities majors that are our CEOs and our millionaires and billionaires, including J.K. Rowling. That's just one example. So I definitely have no I have no preference when it comes to students' majors. I always just want them to know. And if students tell me, understanding the sacrifices and how hard it is, that they love this thing, all the things that Henry talked about, building and making things, and sometimes giving feedback on other people's projects that they build, and seeing how things work and taking them apart, and especially solving problems. Like, you're a problem solver, and it has to be in this way. Then I love that. Then pursue this, and I'm gonna help them make that happen. A lot of times in that first conversation about engineering, where we ask, is engineering right for the student? I'll hear things like these on the screen. I'll hear that the student loves tinkering, like they're always changing things. Uh, that they built a computer or rebuilt a computer. They play with Legos or played with Legos a lot as a younger kid. They code, or that they're technical minded. That they're in the robotics club and they're doing really well, or that they play video games a lot and so they are thinking about creating a video game. I don't think any of those things are necessarily signs that a student is oriented towards engineering. Uh, in fact, I think that there's going to be something else that the student is going to need on top of um, being around technology. I think that they really need to be problem solvers. And I was glad that Henry said that, because a problem solving mindset is what engineering is all about. And if I were an engineering reader for a college, I think that I would really be interested in trying to find those students who demonstrated a mind for problem solving. So these were the statistics that I gathered from my colleagues, and it comes from Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath. We've got two colleges here that we can compare on the left and the right. One is Harvard, one is Hartwick, which is, of course, it doesn't have the shiny name that Harvard has, but it does have an engineering program. And those numbers, 753, 674, those are SAT math scores. Now, I don't put a lot of stock in SAT and SAT math, but for the purposes of this, we'll use it. So the interesting finding from Malcolm Gladwell was that at different schools, kind of across the board, we noticed this pattern where the top 1/3 of students on the SAT, that roughly 55% of them complete their degrees as planned, which may sound low, but actually, considering how tough engineering is, that's all right. But then when we look at the middle third, it drops a lot, and the bottom third is very unlikely to graduate with their STEM degree. So the fact that that's the same across colleges is interesting, because what that means is that a student who has a 580 on the SAT math, if they were to attend Harvard to study engineering, they would have a 15% chance at completing their degree, which is not great. But that exact same student at Hartwick College would have a 55% chance, and that's pretty substantial. So if we kind of do the math on that, uh, if like for a computer science major, if at Harvard, coming out of the gate, they'll make $112,000 per year, but they only had a 15% chance at that actually happening, the expected return there is something like 16,800. And over here at option 2 for Hartwick, if you have a 55% chance at making $80,000, that could be over twice the expected return. And so this is just something to make you think just about how there's more going on than names and salaries, and that there could be a really huge value in being a big fish in a small pond if you're pursuing a career like engineering, where finishing is a big deal. To talk a little bit about the college search, this is my slide for philosophy. I hope that everybody's thinking this way. You want to know yourself and get to a college that's going to serve you. And if you start with a college and try to get there and try to become the person that would get into the college, your mindset may work against you. And I can't think of anywhere more than engineering where that would happen. if you want to will yourself to become a person um, who is an engineer, I think that that's where you can find your path taking unexpected turns. Uh, Whereas if you know that you love engineering, uh, you and maybe and you know that you need one of those schools, there probably is one out there for you. Find the one that serves you. This slide right here is my slide for. This is actually from Steve Antonoff's book, but um, this this slide is about all the different values that somebody would have as they were going to college. Like, what is it that you want from your college experience? And you can see up here that a lot of these things don't look like engineering, and we're in the engineering seminar. I share this because of the sacrifice aspect, is that if you want to focus on number 2 and number 4 about career and earnings, uh, that that an engineering pathway should deliver those things if you complete it and are a good fit for the career, but that you might have to cut back on a lot of these other things. Henry mentioned sports. Number 11 is clubs and activities. I think that an engineering student is going to have a lot less opportunity to participate in sports. I did have a student from 2020 who went on to Purdue to study engineering, and he was in the marching band for 4 years. That amazed me because I don't know where he found the time, but and I'm impressed that Henry did 2 majors, and usually you don't have room for a double major, at least not without really squeezing in the time. And that may be what Henry was talking about how how he wished that he had put all of his time into one thing. But I actually would expect that there may not be time for a minor. There may not be time for a study abroad. You have to understand that engineering becomes your life when you're an engineer. And then you have to assert those things that Henry said was so important about balance and fun. The good news, well, the good news, even though admission to engineering colleges is so tough because seats are limited, the good news is that um, you're going to want to be that big fish. You want to be the fish on the left that's happy and thriving and doing well compared to your peers. So when you make your balanced list, because you want to make sure that you have lots of options, you're going to be conservative for the likely schools. Make sure that you have somewhere you can go and be on top and be successful and get a scholarship. Make sure you have 2 of those schools, 3 of those schools, because I mean, that's good for a number of reasons. You get to be sure you're going to complete the degree, or as sure as you can be. Um, and and I think that it's good. It's good. It's good in general. When you identify your schools for engineering for your college search, that's pretty much the thing you're looking at. You want to check out the curriculum, look at what they're reading, what they're doing, what they're studying. Do you want to take those classes, and are you going to be successful in the classes? Speak to students and professors, ask them about what they're doing in class, out of class, ask them about the workload, ask them about mental health, and sit in on classes if you can. I also think you should make sure that you're aware and comfortable about a competitive academic culture, and that's relative. So, some colleges have a very academically competitive culture. So I went to Johns Hopkins, and I'll tell you that it was very competitive there. Now, somewhere else is competitive may not be as competitive as that. So I identify Washington University in St. Louis as a school that's a bit more collaborative. So last thing I'll say about this, if you can find an institution that's a good fit for you and it's ABET accredited, ABET, that means there's a good chance that this degree will return your investment. So as applications are evaluated by colleges, what kind of things are they going to look at? This is on top of all of the general stuff that they're looking at about your context, of course, your teacher recommendations, your scores if you submit them. I didn't include them here because of test optional, but if you send them scores, I'm sure that they would like to see them at a lot of institutions just because of the math and physics that are happening at the engineering programs. But the number one thing that you're demonstrating to colleges as an engineering applicant is that you're capable of the coursework and that you won't give up and you will complete the coursework. So that's why number one, academics come first. It can't be statistics in senior year or junior year. It can't, after pre-calculus, it has to be calculus. So AP calculus, AP at a bare minimum, but ideally AP calculus, BC, or college math beyond that. Physics, it should be probably, if it's mechanical engineering, it should be AP Physics C, or at least AP Physics 2. And then you have a kind of a conundrum if your school only offers AP Physics 1. So you want to take those very seriously, the math and the physics. Your thing after that is going to be about your activities and making sure that of all of the people who are qualified, because there's so many qualified applicants, that you've demonstrated engagement with the major, that when they look at your essays, your personal statement, your application, your activities, your honors, they're going to see that you don't just say that you like engineering, you actually like engineering, because that kind of throws some evidence down that would say that you might complete this degree, that you're likely to complete the degree. I said communication and writing skills. I think that Henry might support this, but I don't think that many employers want to hire engineers who are insanely and intensely good at math and science and engineering and technology, but they can't communicate with their peers or collaborate with them, write emails or proposals or grants. They just do the technology. I think we can find lots of people who are really good at technology. They will want to see that you can communicate. And so as high school students, if you're thinking about pulling way back on English and history so that you can only do calculus and physics, that instinct may work against you. Under that, the seats available, they can't give you seats that they don't have, and this is just really tough. The majority of students who aren't accepted to engineering programs are amazing students and totally capable and likely to complete the degree. And then it's just, they just don't have the seats. And that's where the balance list comes in. I think that demonstrating these characteristics will show your success, your likely success as an engineering student, that you're a problem solver. That's the engineering mind. That you are persistent in a relentless way. So it's different than overcoming challenges, but in that way that when every sign points to quit, that you would still keep going because it was important to you, or it was a requirement for you. You're a person who needs engineering. You're never going to give up. You should show that you love engineering. There should be a joy for it. All of that stuff that I said you do instead of going out and having fun. Well, that actually could be fun for you. To show that is really powerful, like in your projects. And I think that engineers are collaborative. The sense of why is really great. I think we all know people who are incredibly gifted and smart, and they may not be using that ability for something specific. And it's so cool to see a student who both has the ability and the drive, but then also knows what they want to do with it. And your essays will be a chance to share that. For the engineering majors, Henry covered a couple. There's an article on my website. It shows a lot of the engineering majors. I'll send that home. I'll talk to you quickly about the alternate major. You need one of these. You need to be ready to put on your application a major that's not in the engineering college. What happens is that the universities have different colleges like arts and sciences, nursing, engineering. When you apply into the engineering college at many universities, that was the competitive step. That was what made your admissions process very selective. You want a spot in this college, regardless of the major, but now we have to really hold you to that standard for the engineering college. The alternate major is another chance for them to admit you to the university without putting you in one of those seats that they don't have. So it's really important to choose an alternate major that's not in the engineering college. And I work with students on choosing their alternate majors, but this step is easily the difference between an acceptance and a denial at a university. the alternate major needs to give them an option. This is an article that I wrote about it. It's on my website. You can check out and learn all about it there. I would say that if you're admitted into your alternate major, don't expect to switch into engineering. Generally, you can't switch into engineering. Computer science is the major that everybody asks me about, that they want to study more than any other engineering or computer science or technology major. And that kind of follows. They only have so many seats, and so this is the most selective major. It's because it's so popular. The truth is that if you really love coding and computer science, you can learn all of this on the internet at home, and you can do some really cool things. And they should probably come out with a certification, like a professional certification, because a lot of people could get this certification if they wanted to. But they only have so many seats in these programs at colleges, and if you choose this major, you should really love it, and you should be coding all the time, coding in apps, because you need to stand out in probably what I would call the most selective major. Just remember, they have a BS, but they may also have a BA, where you aren't necessarily doing as much math and physics, and you're doing more coding and exploring more coursework. And you can also get a minor. So that's always an option. If you love engineering, get an engineering minor while you pursue another degree. And you may find that could even be higher powered depending on what you want to do. Your activities should align around whatever your specific engineering major is. And here are just some examples. An aerospace major could use their time to get a pilot's license or work towards it. That's a lot of work. It's a little bit expensive, but being around planes is the whole idea. Drones is not, well, of course, those are not planes, but there are some similar principles happening. Civil engineers could, intern with the city on transportation projects, just to help or watch. And an independent project around traffic lights. We're all surrounded by transportation. How can students engage with it? A chemical engineering major, they could do advocacy around nuclear plants. Again, just an example. A computer engineering major could build a Raspberry Pi. A computer science major, it's all about coding, making projects that do things, that address a why. And you don't need AP Computer Science. You can just learn it from Code Academy and other free courses online. And all majors benefit from doing academic research, but that can be tough to find a mentor or a professor who will help with that. This is a chunk of the work that I do with students, is to help them identify activities that align with their major, whatever their major is. So I love talking about it. Sometimes it's about creativity and thinking about what you have time for and what your positioning is and what you want to do. And then I was going to show you and talk out some college essay prompts. I think this is the part we don't have time for, but I think that the good news is that I'm here to chat about it if anybody wants to find me another time and chat about some of these interesting prompts and tasks from the engineering colleges trying to identify their best applicants. So at this point, I'm going to turn off the share, and I'm going to first ask Adrian if he can share what questions were shared in the chat. After that, I'll turn off the screen recording, turn off the recording and hear from individuals who haven't shared their question yet.
Yeah, we had a question for Henry. It was, do you think petroleum engineering might become less relevant in the future green economy?
I'm not a petroleum engineer and I'm not a renewable energy engineer, so I don't have the professional background to give a very authoritative response. But from what I've seen, even if green technology takes off, we will still need petroleum. For example, it's not just used for fuel, it's used in making plastic, right? They can recycle it to, I saw this one article where they recycled coal and they took methane gas from it to make protein for animal feed. So even if it declines, I don't think it will go away in the near future. Someday, maybe, but at least for the next decade or so, I think petroleum and oil will still be very important because the technology for green technology just isn't fully rolled out yet. It's still mostly the early adopters. But in a lot of places, coal and natural gas and petroleum is still the king.
Adrian, were there any other questions in the chat?
I think that was all that I saw that were privately messaged to me. But if anybody else has a question, feel free to message it to me or leave it in the public chat and then we'll get to it.
Great.
And also feel free to unmute as well.
Excellent. What I'm going to do is turn off the video so that anybody who just wants to speak up can feel good to do that. And thank you for those watching on video. Thank you for joining. And of course, let me or Henry know if you have any questions. I'm Robert at College Torch. That's collegetorch.com. And Henry is at Commando Combatives and Calculus. I think that's combatcalc@yahoo.com.